Welcome to the Future Ready Librarian podcast. I'm so excited to welcome two friends tonight. And I've just had so much fun following along what is happening within my dear friend Craig's school district and his school. And I'm really excited that he invited a new friend, Rebecca, with him today. And so welcome.
Well, thanks a lot, Shannon. It's always fun to do Future Ready thinking because I love my job day to day with kids. And then to be able to come out and sort of look at the big landscape is a joy. And the opportunity to talk today is like, I'm a people librarian and I want Rebecca in there talking to the Future Ready community too.
I love it. I know. And to start, I know you, but I want everyone else to know a little bit about you. So, Rebecca, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about where you're at?
Sure. My name's Rebecca Wynkoop. I'm a librarian in Seattle Public Schools in Seattle, Washington. I'm at Robert Eaglestaff Middle School. I did have the joy of opening that library as a brand new library, which I never thought in my career I'd get to do. And so I have a special affinity for this school because it feels like my baby. And I am in my 20th year as a school librarian. I've had some experience in both the independent schools here in Seattle and also for the last 16 years in Seattle Public Schools, and have worked at both the elementary and now I've been at the middle school level for a few years. I'm also pretty active in our state organization. I'm a current board member for the Washington Library Association. And I was honored to be nominated and eventually won a 2019 AASL Advocacy Award, which, considering at the time we were facing some pretty drastic cuts in Seattle, to not only stave off the cuts, but be recognized for that work was pretty spectacular.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, congrats on that. I just can't even wait to hear more. So that's awesome. And you have like a super cool thing behind you that tell people you're going to want to know what that is.
Yeah, so working partly from home and partly from school in this remote model, a lot of the book processing happens at home. We're genrefied. We have 16 different sections in our library. We've genrefied. And so these are the spine label covers because we genrefied. Instead of using the picture labels, we use colors. And so I needed easy access, but it's kind of a nice, pretty thing to always have behind you.
It is awesome. Good conversation starter there. I love it. Greg, how about you?
Well, I realize I haven't turned on a catchy background, but I've got a green screen given to me by one of Joyce Valenza's students, and I'll throw something up there. I'm an elementary librarian, delighted to be in sort of my 30-something year in education and a decade in Seattle Public Schools. So the elementary school I serve is a dual language immersion with both Spanish and Mandarin half day for our students. And it's an older open concept building. So unlike Rebecca's, that's a brand new shiny glass fish bowl in the center of the school. I have no glass. But I'm in the center of the school. And so anytime when we're in person, which we've not been since February, March, I'm in the middle of the school. Also, state association work is important for us. And a lot of my friendships came out of the what was Wilma, and then I had a year as president of the Washington Library Association, as well as serving with the AASL board. And so I enjoy working with Future Ready things. Shout out to your partner and my friend, Mark Ray. Mark and I maybe have the last two of these t-shirts around, but this I'm a lit librarian is something Mark worked on very hard, and all of us in the Washington library community worked on building a library and information technology program profile, making that a state definition of librarianship. And so we're really pleased that being lit librarians left us ready to pivot and succeed this year.
Oh yeah, you do so many great things. Your librarians there in Washington, and not surprised that you're both involved in that organization. I'm just always so inspired and impressed whenever I get to see you or come to do things, events out there. And it's just amazing all of the work that you've done. So super lucky kids that get to work with the librarians in Washington State. And I'm so excited to talk a little bit about what is happening within your school district. And, I follow Craig, all of the neat things that you continue to do around children's lit and authors. And I was so happy when I asked you to come on and you invited Rebecca, and they're going to talk a little bit about how they're pivoting their services just to provide that remote blended learning opportunity to their kids. And I'm excited to hear more about the things that are going on and just how you're addressing this, especially because you're still remote.
Yeah, well, we are fully, and until that changes, um, having some dexterity with online tools um, gave us a head start. When we started pivoting last spring, it was just like, okay, now I can invite authors. They don't have to travel, and we can share. And one first thing that's been successful for me this year is being comfortable, really platform agnostic, but content rich, bringing authors and publishers, Philip Lee from Readers to Eaters, and illustrators in front of kids has been a joy. This fall, there's a traditional Battle of the Books, what we in Seattle call the Global Reading Challenge. Big program. It runs out to 70 elementary schools where 4th and 5th graders had a series of 7 books this year. This is a program run by the Seattle Public Library into our public schools. And I was ready to say, well, I'll help host the author visits. And because of our partnership with Seattle Public Library, I was able to have these really wonderful people. Started the year with Joe Bruchac and Victoria Jameson. Was talking to Jerry Kraft a week ago and Angela Cervantes next week. But these wonderful authors are hungry to talk to kids, and I could have 500 to 1,000 kids in my library talking with these authors. And it's just a slight pivot, but I don't think it's one that anybody's going to go back on. That authors are thrilled to be able to reach out and reach so many kids. And this sort of reading advocacy, the first pillar of library and information technology framework, reading advocacy happens online just as well and in new ways than it did in person.
Yeah, and I find that too, when we first, were at home in March, and I reached out to authors for our kids with book clubs. I didn't have anyone say like, no, they didn't have time. Yeah. It was more like they would see, me post a picture on Twitter or Facebook, and they would say, hey, I see your kids are reading my book. Like, I would love to connect with them. And they wouldn't connect just once, they would connect several times with the kids and just talk to them. And a few of the authors would say, like, I needed that so much because it's that connection that they miss. But just think of the impact they're having. It's not just, a few kids in the library or trying to figure out how to fit all your kids into an auditorium. It's that now you can invite, all of your kids to be able to be part of that, and even kids in other places, which is a great thing too. And Rebecca, what is it looking like for you in your middle school?
Well, I'm just following off of Craig's little bit about author visits. I'm super excited. In the next couple of weeks, we've got Scott Rankin coming. He wrote the Nixia trilogy and has just started to write the Ash Lord series. And so I'm really excited because in our building, in person, we don't really have the capacity to host an all-school event, just the way the building was built. And so this idea that you can have these virtual visits with authors and and still build, you know, that relationship and give students that exposure to what that looks like is really exciting, and that we can invite other schools, right, who are reading, you know, books by that same author. And I think it's been a really great way, certainly for the Global Reading Challenge. I know those schools are connecting in ways that they hadn't before. And it's really changed, you know, the way in which we think about how we offer some of those bigger events and what services we provide. I know that last spring, like one of my first big thoughts was, how do we keep kids in books? How do we, you know, they're home now, they can't come to school. What do we do? And how do we move forward? And so in Seattle, we moved pretty quickly. We were middle to late April, we were already examining and looking for ways to continue to serve students and to be their reading advocates and make sure they kept having access to their libraries. So at Eagle Staff, we do twice weekly curbside library, 2 hours, 2 days a week. And it's been really great. We're looking, you know, putting 200, 300 books out the door every week to students and continuing to be able to serve even our small community. We have about 770 students at our school. But what that allowed us to do, certainly in Seattle, as a core of librarians, was really support each other as we tried new things. Like, that was the biggest piece. Nobody had exactly the right answer for what this was supposed to, nobody did. And so to be able to rely on each other and look at different models, all with that same intention of continuing to advocate for readers and making sure they had access. Partnering with Seattle Public Library gave us access to Libby and Overdrive, where our kids can get lots and lots of ebooks and audiobooks, as well as Hoopla Digital, where they can stream graphic novels, and really putting like a far more robust package together of library services than I've ever experienced as a librarian. And I mean, I'm 20 years in, I've got some experience in different schools. And so for me, it's been really interesting to think about not only like what we're doing now, but what are we going to take from this moment and what are we going to bring back with us when we come? And I think that the author visit is an excellent example of ways in which we can continue to build bridges for kids and for readers that maybe we hadn't in the past. And it does, even though it feels sometimes like it's so much more impersonal, to not be at school and you're not with your friends or you don't see your colleagues. There are other barriers that we're breaking down because we're utilizing the technology that we have at our disposal.
You know, one of them, in Seattle, we started using Talking Points. It's an app that automatically translates to family home languages. And so as Rebecca started to experience it, I started to see it as librarians collaborated and said, try this. And it's revolutionary in a school like mine with so many languages. I'm able to say, you know, those books you asked for, they're here, they're ready. Can you come, or do you need alternate delivery? And it goes out and is received in Vietnamese, Somali, Tagalog, whatever language is spoken at home, and the parents reply in home language and I receive in English. And it's a piece of technology you'd never go back on because it's direct communication to families in the format they prefer. And I'm just, you know, swiping and sending all during my, you know, get ready. And as a result, almost every book gets picked up every time. And those families who can't make it, they say we can't. And I have parents who come at the last minute and they say, can I help with any deliveries? And so we're not going to walk that back, that level of communication with families, and families sense that teachers are really there for them in their language. It just has done a lovely job, and it was beautifully timed for the pandemic.
Yeah.
The other thing, Rebecca, that you were talking about that really struck me is that, and there was a lovely post about, you know, reading is self-care. And while we've been reading advocates forever because we love books and authors and the relationship between author and reader, it's the activity that has nourished and sustained kids and kids' independent learning in this pandemic in ways that overemphasize. Last night, another thing is, online book clubs. And I don't run it as a teaching book club, but let's do book love together. And Thursday evenings, I have a group of mostly immigrant kids who are joining a book club, and they all get 60 seconds, boom, the timer's on, and they talk about what they're reading, and they're taking notes and asking questions about things to read. And none of those kids go to my school.
Oh.
They've all come in through other librarians, and they say, this is my one time in the week, to join book club, and they're talking about issues. It's just a thrill, just a thrill. And those are tools that we should never walk back.
Yeah, it's so neat though to see like those changes, that think how that has affected. I mean, not only been there for our kids this year and your kids and all the kids and the families that need things like that, but for the future, the doors that is going to open and has opened, and they're going to stay that way.
Yeah.
And I think that is, we were talking today, Mark and I, actually, about our upcoming Future Ready Librarian Summits, and we're having them in February and March. And, I talked about that. I said, it's time to really think about, how our roles have changed and how they're going to stay, that way, and even change even more to really, I think, open so many doors for us.
Yeah. And the sense that you're a teacher involved in mostly direct relationships, but with all the students, and that you're always pushing the envelope on what are tech tools that help you do the real work together. Not what are the fun tech tools, but what are the ones that really deliver for kids. In Seattle, we work so hard on an equity mission in reaching those furthest from educational justice, and things like language translation that helps us get to those families. Figuring out home delivery. This morning, I was on my bicycle in an apartment complex, finding my way to an Eritrean family. And this is really our mission, and whatever technology is going to help our kids jump up and be happy to see a fresh batch of books for the coming week, I'm in favor of.
That's just like magical. You
Yeah.
guys are doing just amazing things, and parents have to be so thankful, that those relationships, that not only that you've given hope to the kids, but hope to the families too, to see their kids.
Right.
Yeah, today I was with our 8th grade language arts classes. I still am on a regular rotation of visiting our library, our classes, and making sure that they have frequent and consistent access to the library. Sometimes something we lose when you head into secondary, right? When you're not part of the service model necessarily. And so I was with our 8th graders today, who I've had for 3 years. And actually, there's a large number of kids in that grade that I had when they were in elementary school. So I had them for 5 years in elementary school, and now they've matriculated up into middle school. And we're introducing we do a Project Lit community started by Jared Amato out of Nashville, Tennessee a few years ago. We're one of the local chapters, and we do a challenge every year, our reading challenge. And so we're introducing this reading challenge today, and they're like already pumped because this is something they know. And school librarians, you serve your communities for extended periods of time. When you get to secondary and you have a teacher for a year, or you have 6 teachers in a year, or you have them for a semester, you don't necessarily have the opportunity to make those deep connections with families. And I think that last spring, certainly, when we weren't providing a school-based curbside model, we were like legit driving books to families' houses. Every book a kid wanted, we were putting in regions, and teachers were picking up 20 and 25 books from my house and going out and delivering. But because we do work so closely with families and you get to know them over time, it does allow us to build this a deeper sense of connection. And I was a little bit, I don't know, I was thinking of these 8th graders that are heading into their second semester here of 8th grade, and they're going to finish middle school and then be gone. And I said, it's a little bittersweet to be here with you and be talking about our last Project Lit Challenge, knowing that you're going to go off to high school, but we're already at that point in the year, and wanting to continue to celebrate them, and continue to build their choice into every aspect of their reading lives has just been something that I've been really grateful for as we continue to do this. I did also think one of the other things we started doing was when we're in school and you create community events, you're limited by a master schedule that limits certain spaces in the building and which administrator can be there to supervise and all these things. We started doing a monthly trivia last spring because families just wanted a place to connect and see their friends and do things. And so that's the other thing. I think that that silver lining is that our parents, our guardians, the adults in the lives of our students have connected with school and with their libraries in ways that are just really different than they had in the past. And I'm really grateful for that.
That's so neat. That's something for all of us to really think about. And that brings so much to any community, but you guys are just amazing and just lucky kids and families to get to have you as librarians and teachers too. Your teachers have to be so grateful for everything that you guys are doing.
Well, it includes our public library partners. And while Seattle isn't as far down the road as Nashville or New York, I have a public librarian who's coming into class meetings, or, I have a book group and he'll come into that, and kids are building that. And if you talk about relationships, Rebecca does a terrific job bridging some of her students to their high school librarian, and there's some shared programming and overlap, but the shared community of learners that happens through the public library partnerships is another major piece of the learning and the silver lining, because all throughout the country, public libraries are trying to build that link and that service, not in competition, but in collaboration. And a little project that I got to witness as a school librarian, the ALA developed an ecosystem. We had a task force for a year, and they developed a toolkit for states to really, take the pulse and strengthen all of the parts of the library ecosystem, the publics and the schools. I've been sending kids off to an evening, an afternoon and weekend Camp Readerama that's run by Dr. Michelle Martin, who's at our iSchool at the University of Washington. And again, they're building community with kids. In this case, there's kids from all over the country who come in to share book joy and some pretty exciting partnerships there with the academic libraries as well as the public libraries. So I'm thrilled when people think ecosystem of learning and the power of libraries. And I'm thrilled also that ALA keeps that libraries transform slogan going, because it really captures what we're able to do in libraries.
Especially now, right? And
yeah,
I'm looking forward to ALA Midwinter the next few days. And
I was listening to Matt De La Pena today with Christian Robinson,
I
and
saw
my heart just grew capacious, as Kate DiCamillo says.
I
So
can't even wait to tune in. I have my schedule kind of blocked out. I think that will fill my heart as well. So that will be good. Well, friends, it was so great to have you on. And I know that people, if they have questions, I would love for you to tell everyone where they could find you, if it's on Twitter or somewhere else. That would be great.
Rebecca?
Yeah, I have social media accounts on both Twitter and Instagram, Eagle Staff LIB on both. I would love to have you join. It's just been a great way to build not only connections, again, with my students and their families, but with other librarians around the country. And it's so interesting to think about how much our job has changed in even just the last 5 years. And I owe so much of what we were prepared to do this last spring to the connections and the support system that we have been able to build using social media. So definitely drop by Instagram or Twitter and go to Eagle Staff LIB. I'd love to meet more people.
Yay. Yeah.
Great.
That's awesome.
And for me, an odd name like Craig Seasholes goes for a Twitter handle, and I'm more on Twitter than the other platforms. But the other one, and all of our listeners know that the remarkable community that you've built and pulled together with the Future Ready Librarians Facebook page, it really is such a large, vast community that learning to filter through and get your needs met as a learner, as an adult learner, and to build community. It's a terrific resource, and I've been delighted to be part of that. So Shannon, I really look forward to people taking this broadcast and curiosity and do just what I do. If there's an idea, like, I am on that person, because every single person, if it's Jerry Kraft or Yuji Morales or Javaka Steptoe, if you say, hello, friend, I have a question,
Yeah,
everybody is eager to answer questions
that's right.
and
I
to
know
reach
we're all-
out.
We're all in this together. So
Aren't we, though?
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
you're welcome, and thank you. And thank you all the listeners who are listening. And I know you're going to take away so many ideas. So we're very thankful that you joined us, and we'll see everyone again on our next podcast. Thanks for coming.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for the Future Ready Librarian podcast, Leading from the Library. I would like to also thank our sponsor, Follett Learning, for their amazing continued support.